Greetings and welcome back. My name is Rudimentary Rob. Welcome to my Season 2 opener for Valheim. Today, in keeping with the first episode being an hour long, is also going to be approximately an hour long. So don't worry, there is quite a lot to take in. This hour came from about 2.5 hours worth of recorded footage. Don't worry, most of the boring stuff is gone. We are now firmly ensconced in moving our tech forward. As you can see here, I've got the swamp key. I've got the headlight. I'll call it the headlight torch. It's got a name, but that's all I buy it for, is so I've got something to wear on my head to see better in dark places. Stocking up on food. I've got some potions here I prepared, or brews as they refer to in Valheim. Got some healing brew. Got some poison resistance brew. We've got our best foods. I wonder where we might be off to today. Now we commence our journey today from our new base. If you missed the video, I posted the video a few days ago with a bit of a walkthrough. It's still a bit of a work in progress, but as I listed in that video, I'm kind of keen to get back into it and start moving my story forwards. Don't worry, I'll give you some progress updates as I make further improvements to that base. Now we've stepped through our portal and we're now back out on what I'm going to refer to as Elder Island. You can see there at the top of the map is where the Elder is. I'm now just circling with my mouse where we're intending to head down to. As you can see, I've already pre-explored a couple of crypts. Now, one of those crypts is where I did sort of pre-clear a little bit, but that was just so I could get more or less a handful of iron that I ended up needing as part of my base build. Again, I covered that in the base quest, but I left everything else behind in that crypt. So that's where we're going now. So we've just zipped down to the edge of the swamp, and we're going to stick our head in here and see what lies in store. Now, see how the eye went immediately open when I stealthed? Leeches in the swamp will do that to you all the time. Just get used to it. I have the door knocker on hand. The reason why I'm using this is to try and maintain a safe distance from them, because there's a chance when they bite you that you can be poisoned. And there is quite a few critters in the swamp that can poison you. Leeches are probably the most annoying. The other creature I just killed is well, I call them a dragur, but you know, pronunciation of their name varies a lot from person to person. These blobs, they will also poison you, which is why I'm trying to kill them with fire. And here's another dragur. They come in the archer variant. The archers, like the skeleton archers before them, can hurt quite a bit, so don't underestimate how much damage they can do. And, you know, swamps are full of life, and we've already seen a few different examples of it. Here is yet another one. This is an abomination. Mechanic-wise, it's probably best referred to as a troll for the swamp. However, these guys are a bit of a handful if they get you cornered. That potion I just drank was completely accidental. And the other problem I have with abominations is it's easy to kind of bug them out and make them run like that. This is a great way to practice your long distance archery. As you can see, I'm landing arrows and setting him on fire from, you know, low Earth orbit. And through those arrows, I've managed to re-aggro him back over to me. Being a tree, they don't tend to take a lot of damage from blunt, which is why I've switched to my axe. Mental note, I really need to get some more bronze so I can upgrade my axe. That said though, I'll probably just collect more iron and make an iron one. So, strap in. We're not done with critters in the swamp, not by a long shot. As you can see here, because one fight is clearly not enough for me at the moment, you can see there's a little green glow there. That is a Draugr spawner. Now, generally it won't spawn anything unless you get within a certain radius of it, which is why when I spot them in the swamp, I try and kill them at range with arrows, because then I don't have to risk them spawning something horrific. Because sometimes they will spawn something fairly horrific. I may have an example of that a bit later this episode. Cough. Spoiler alert. Cough. Now, scratch one abomination. Ooh, that's a 1-star leech. We definitely want to maintain our distance because, like with the shamans in the Black Forest, it's not just the attacks that benefit from the increase in number of stars. The strength of the poison also increases, so you know, 1 and 2-star leeches, you want to be super careful around them. And that is just a garden variety skeleton. They're just as hard here as they were in any other zone you come across them. And you can come across 1 and 2-star variants here in the swamp as well, but they're probably the easiest thing you're going to come across here. Alright, now we're going to pick up our proceeds from killing the abomination. Lots and lots and lots of things to unlock from that. The root is used to make the root armor. It's quite good in some situations, not so good against fire. We'll come back and revisit that at some stage because I'll probably make at least one piece of it. There is guck, which is also what you find in those glowing nodules on the side of the trees in the swamp. It is used as part of crafting, and I think I got a trophy out of that as well, which will be part of fishing, no doubt. So we've reached our destination crypt here. We're just doing a fresh run of food. We're going to dive in here, and as I said, I've actually pre-cleared this. I'm just going to go in here and have a quick look around. This is what I left behind from my previous run. So there's 28 iron, some bones. So that withered bone is what we use to summon the next boss. And a little bit of wood. I'd already cleared out anything else of any value in my little exploration run. But don't worry, we do clear a number of crypts across this episode. But something of more intriguing note is up here. The Draugr don't just come in the normal kind that we've seen, and they're obviously 1 and 2-star variants. There is also a type of Draugr called an elite. Now you will notice the difference because, like so many other creatures in Valheim, the colour of their eyes is the giveaway. And these guys have a very intense blue eyes. Now, Draugr elites, in the gear I've got now, even with my reasonably well upgraded bronze, They hurt a lot, which is why I'm electing to try and take him down with arrows. It's not to say I couldn't stand up to him face to face, I certainly could. I'm just trying to avoid taking some damage when I can. Now, the reason for killing these guys is there is a trophy that these guys drop, and the trophy is needed to unlock certain useful upgrades, I'll say. Now, the problem is, from day one, you really want to be trying to kill these guys as often as you can find them, because in various playthroughs, sometimes it takes me 20, 30, 50, feels like 100 of these guys just to get one trophy. Let's see how many it takes us this time. Alright, and yep, you saw that correctly. I got an elite trophy on the first one. Sorry, Itchy. Thems be the breaks. Alright, we're just heading back to base now just to unload. I did skip most of this. We left the iron behind in the tower because you can't take it through the teleporter. Don't worry, we've got a boat that we're going to line up and take up there a bit later in the episode. Alright, so we're going back to where we were before, and you'd think, oh yeah, we've cleared all of those guys out, and we've only been gone for a couple of hours. Yeah, swamp will do that to you. Just get used to it. And just because one thing at a time is never enough, I've started a fight with a Draugr and an Oozer. Now, if you're not quite sure what an Oozer is, it's like one of those blobs, except it's bigger. It is a bit scarier. It can poison you, but the key and the most important detail is when you kill the Oozer, it disappears and it gets replaced by two blobs, which you then have to try and kill as well. So I've got a bit of experience with these guys, so I'm not feeling particularly intimidated by him. However, you do still need to give them a respectful arm's length. Otherwise, you're going to spend half your day poisoned and the other half your day doing corpse runs. Now, this is the other use for the door knocker. is because it knocks them back and because they move so slowly, you can just spam it and they'll just keep taking damage and they'll never get close enough to actually poison you in an ideal world. Drago trophies, not that particularly useful. I can't remember if they are for something or not, but I always seem to remember having lots of them and not knowing what to use them for, so... Ooh, hello. 1 star. Emergency battle stations. Warning, warning. Yep, and that message, you're not seeing things in amongst my busy efforts to ensure that I'm repaired and I got more food, more potions. I promptly forgot to get more arrows when I was last at the base. So, tell me, how many different things do you think I've done completely wrong in this fight? If you say I'm failing hard at blocking, that would be because this shield, which has served me so well, is really outclassed by a lot of stuff in this dungeon. So you are going to see me wanting to upgrade my shield as soon as I have enough iron to do so. I've just a brief interlude here to try and address my arrow issue without having to go all the way back to base. I did have a little bit of wood nearby, so I just threw down a bench, covered it, so I can use it to repair and make some arrows. Only 60 arrows, but that's enough for now. I'm only intending to do a quick run into a crypt and then I'll go back to base to resupply. This is my dumping ground for Black Forest shiz, because basically you need a lot of room when you're doing crypts. Crypts drop a lot of different gear, a bit like the dungeons in the Black Forest in that regard, except I think crypts are even worse if that's possible. You'll notice I still haven't really managed to advance very far into the swamp yet, because every time I come back I feel like there's just as many creatures here. You will gradually work your way through them until eventually you'll have to be gone for a day or two before they've all completely respawned. But the first time you come into the swamp, make sure you've got quite a lot of arrows, quite a lot of food, and if you can manage it, a few healing brews, and definitely some poison resistance, because you're probably going to need it, especially the first time in. I mean, look at this little gaggle of skeletons here. Skeletons are not an issue. The door knocker specialises in the removal of skeletons. But, you know, if you get them while you're fighting something else, sometimes they can make the difference. Oh, hello. And we have another local. I told you there'd be plenty of action in this episode. Alright, and here I am correctly demonstrating the process of how to get poisoned by a leech. As you can see, it does tick for quite a while, and it does not a completely inconsiderable amount of damage, but, you know, like the shaman poison, it does wear off eventually. Moral of the story is, look, just try not to get poisoned, and if you do get poisoned, have at least a healing potion with you, so that you can try and offset the damage that you take through the poison. Alright, here we are at a brand new crypt, and as you can see it uses a swamp key to open the gate. Now, I'll just pause here for a moment. Yep, that is a Drago spawner. It is indoors. That happens a lot. First and only rule of the spawners in crypts, as was the case in the dungeon, you really need to focus on taking the spawner out as quickly as possible. Any prizes for guessing what might happen to you if you fail to do this? Don't worry, you can leave a comment below if you like, but trust me, that question will get answered a little bit later this episode. Now, this is the first lesson of crypts, how to navigate a crypt. You'll see these muddy scrap piles everywhere, and you just mine them, and you will get a variety of drops out of them. Primarily, the drop we're looking for is iron scrap, or scrap iron. You will also get boar leather, which is scrap leather. You will get the bones, or withered bone I believe it's called, you use to summon the next boss. And probably some other things that I've completely forgotten about. Now, a little tip for doing the crypts, because iron is heavy, and I'm going to tell you now, it's pretty rare for a crypt to only have enough iron in it that you could carry all of it out in one go without being encumbered. So a little habit that Itchy and I have is we find the first chest that's closest to the entry, and that's where we dump our iron and other heavy items into, and we just remember where it is so we can come back for it to drop off any other iron we find. And also, once we've finished clearing the crypt, we know to come back to that chest to get all of our yummy loot. So, moving on, in this particular crypt, I can already see from this angle that this bit is just a dead end. We still dig them out because, you know, ultimately I'm here for scrap iron, and if I'm going to get scrap iron out of the scrap pile, I'm going to be mining as much of it as I can. Now, you're going to be doing a lot of mining in these crypts, so be mindful when you swing and miss, because you will cause a durability hit on your mining pick, and you're not going to be able to repair it anywhere other than back at base. So if you want to minimize how many trips you need to make to clear the crypt, you know, make every hit with your pickaxe count. Now, the thing I try and do when I can hear Dragur or oozes or whatever on the other side, I try and only make a little tiny gap so that they can't get through, but I can potentially shoot them with my, you know, bow or whatever. Or, when in doubt, you get out the door knocker and watch the damage numbers. If something is taking damage, you keep knocking until you hear it say ouch, and then until you hear it die and explode in the traditional Valheim fashion. If there's nothing else in the room, it means you can dig through the rest of the way, pick up your loot, and then repeat the process with the next room. Alright, we're doing our mid-dungeon unload before we anticipate moving into a new area within the crypt. We're just failing hard at navigating back to our initial chest, which is right there. As you can see, we've got quite a bit of iron. Definitely worth, keeping all of that together. Now that we've dropped that off, we've got a lot more room and we can get back to the task at hand. Now, a sound to listen out for is a sound, it's a bit like the beehives when you first find them, except it's definitely buzzing flies. That will warn you that there is a spawner. And you can hear it off to the left now. Anywhere where there's a spawner, be really careful. Now, I don't think I was being careful enough with any of these scrap piles. We're trying to make sure that the hallway open is as narrow as I can make it. There's been a couple now that have opened up a lot wider than is either useful or practical. Now, opening into a spawner room, you want to get as far through as you can, but you definitely don't want to leave a hole that big. And your first mission needs to be to take out the spawner. Now, that Draugr is all well and good, but then, because I opened the hole too wide, the melee one can get through to me. Not quite sure why he wasn't taking the swing at me like this guy, but hey, we'll thank ourselves for small miracles. And now we have another spawn. Now there's a lot to unpack there, and it's about to get worse because old mate has found me again. The spawner is still up, and yep, this is where the internet meme should play, and this is where he knew he messed up. Because where there is a spawner, you can always potentially get one of these fellas. Yep, you saw correctly. That is a 2-star Draugr. And a 1-star was ripping through me like my shield wasn't even there. So that was basically guaranteed when I didn't take out the spawner as my first mission. Now, I skipped the re-equipment phase, but basically I just grabbed my old bow, I grabbed a few arrows, the little dagger, and my troll set so I could sneak through reasonably undetected. The troll set, it's comparable to the bronze set that I have, but it is a bit lighter on armor. And given the fact that the undead can tend to see you through a fairly significant sneak skill, I'm not sure that I'm getting that much benefit out of the additional sneak. But as you can see, our little friend is there. He's sort of alerted to me, and I did wait for a little bit to see if he would de-aggro, but he didn't. And thank God he got stuck on that bit of scrap pile that was still there. Now, I was doing the right thing this time. You might be wondering why I'm not taking the archers down. I've learnt my lesson at this stage. I am focused on taking the spawner down first. And as you can see, when I enter the room, the spawner is already gone because I was shooting past the archers to take out the spawner on the ground, because I'd brought a couple of healing brews with me so that I could tank the damage from the archers while I was dealing with the spawner. Now, here we are dealing with the downside of re-equipping for a corpse run, and you end up with all of this extra gear when you're probably close to full already. So I have to spend the next little bit relaying equipment back out to the entrance, as well as the iron that we found. So yeah, there'll be a couple of minutes of this, but it's in just to remind everyone, you know, focus on the task at hand, take down the priority targets, and it might save your corpse run every now and again. Alright, now we're done with our rearrangement and whatnot. We can get back to the task at hand, which is getting us some more iron and some more fat loot. And from the moaning and the squelching, we can tell that we're not done dealing with enemy critters, not just yet. Yeah, it goes back into what I was saying before. There is just so many different types of loot in these dungeons. There's a point at which I'll stop collecting the withered bones, because you actually don't need that many, and they are quite heavy. You're probably only going to keep, you know, a handful of them from your first couple of dungeons, and then after that you just end up tossing them away. Well, there's a piece of relevancy from the universe. Don't feel rested anymore. Yeah, that's me. Probably about 5 minutes after I get out of bed every morning. Haha. Anyway, the trudge continues. Alright, well, we've done the hard yakka and we have cleared our crypt, and you can see how much iron we ended up with. Quite a good haul. That's 84 iron. Definitely 84 more than we had at the start of that session. Now, as you can see, iron is very heavy, but because I've got so much of it and I know it's going to take me 3 trips, I'm trying to get the absolute maximum carry weight of 450, and that sort of means if I can do that as many times as possible, it gives me a little bit of spare room on the last trip, just to go exploring around and see if there's anything nearby that we could, you know, call our own. Alright, little bit of late night maths later, we arrived at 450 out of 450. Only one mission now is to get our backside back to base, except, surprise, I skipped that bit, and now you can see we're coming back to pick up our second run, and it's pretty clear that we're going to need to come back for a third run. And a near epoch worth of thinking time later, I've come to the conclusion that what I had on me was enough, and we can run that back to base, and here we are for our third run. And we pick up what's left in the chest, and we now have quite a bit of spare room, and we're going to have a bit of a poke around. There's probably close to an hour of playtime by the time I did all the toing and froing. So I'm just doing one last run through to make sure I haven't left anything behind that I actually care about. Spoiler alert, you know, boar leather is not something I really care about at this time. It's past its use by date as far as crafting goes, so it's just garbage at this point. To be honest, the bone fragments are borderline that as well, because I've already got multiple stacks of them back at the base, but just on the off chance I feel like I need them for something later, I'm going to keep collecting them, at least for now. If I ever end up with a full chest full, I will certainly be leaving them behind from that point forward. Now, this is a bit of that scouting around and exploring that I said I was going to do. There's actually 2 more drops which I haven't come across yet, and I'm going to use this time just to see if I can find any of them. One of them is a new plant, a new farmable plant. Well, new, it's not new, it's been in the game most of the time, but it's new to this run, and that is turnips. Now, in much the same way that you get carrots from Black Forest, you get turnips from the swamp. And I'm just keeping my eye out for any turnip plants. The other thing I'm looking for, which I won't find at the moment because it's daytime, I am looking for wraith or ghosts, because they can drop chains, and I need chains for a couple of upgrades back at the base. So they're the 2 things I'm kind of looking for at the moment. Given it's daytime, I really just want to get some turnip seeds. Now, just for reference, this little altar thing here, this is the altar where you can summon bone mass. And as you can see, and this is pretty common through most of my run-throughs, if you're running short on crypts and you've got the locator for bone mass on your map, go and seek out bone mass, because if bone mass is in a respectable sized swamp area, I find there is usually an above average amount of crypts in the immediate vicinity of bone mass. I don't know if that's just been luck of the draw with me, but it's happened enough times that it is something I do seek out if I'm a bit short on iron from other locations. Alright, here's our little hint marker. It says, cook their remains. Well, I mean, if you're going for a full English breakfast, you'll do that anyway. But in Valheim, in regard to summoning bone mass, it just means to take some withered bones, being the remains of, you know, people that used to own them. And you need to chuck them into the altar to summon him. I actually don't remember how many it is. It's probably only 2 or 3, but when I go to do bone mass, which will be much later in the season, I will end up probably taking half a dozen withered bones with me just to make sure I've got enough. So stay tuned for that. Alright, good to see I actually learned from my earlier failures. Didn't matter that I had 2 Draugr archers there and their potential for doing damage to me. I did focus on the spawner first to make sure that I didn't get any special surprises. So that's generally the best way to approach any of the spawners. I guess option 1 is obviously destroy them at a long enough range that nothing has a chance to spawn in. But plan B, you know, destroy the spawner in preference to whatever it's recently spawned. And then, you know, move on and kill the rest as you go. Moving into further explorations, we can see there's actually a little bit of black forest up that hill. So that's kind of found this little edge of the swamp. So I'm going to have a bit more of a poke around here. Still really only just looking to explore and to hopefully find some more, hopefully to find some turnip seeds. Now, I didn't have enough regular arrows to even make a dent in that guy, and I thought, well, you know, I thought I might have a go at trying to show you guys something interesting, but it didn't actually play out that way. If he was determined enough to follow me all the way to the edge of the Black Forest, I'm aware that there's actually a troll spawn not far from here. And the last couple of times I'd run past, there was actually a troll there. So I was going to get the 2 of them to beat each other senseless for a while, and then whoever won, I was going to finish them off. But unfortunately, my plan didn't quite work that way. In the meantime, I just decided to run back to my tower, drop off the iron that I had. As you can see, I've got almost 4 full stacks. And I'm thinking, hey, I got a small boat. It's got 4 slots. I wonder what I could do. Alright, so here we are with our little boat. Now, you might think, oh, I should just sail it straight there. Yeah, it's kind of a long way, and I really wasn't in the mood to spend that much time in the boat, particularly with Valheim's habit of enhancing your experience in boats by randomly spawning serpents and things of that nature. So I thought it best to pick up the boat and the portal mats that were in its cargo hold. And you can do that easily just by destroying the boat with an axe or whatever weapon you've got to hand. Pick up all the bits and pieces. Obviously make sure you've got room to pick it all up. And then, because you get 100% of your mats back, you can easily throw that boat down somewhere else where you need it. So think of this a bit like using the Eikthyr buff and a portal to get all your metal back. You know, thanks to the portal, you've only got to do it one way. Well, same deal here. We've got our boat on us. We've got some spare portal mats which will come into play in a minute. And we are going to work on hauling some of that lovely iron back to base where we can smelt it up. Now, I'd loaded all the iron into the boat, but I also had a small side quest, which was to find myself some copper. So I went and did a little bit of troll mining. Don't worry, you didn't really miss anything interesting. In fact, it was a bit more boring than the last couple of troll mining exercises I had. So, as you can see, in addition to the quantity of steel in the cargo hold, oh, not steel, it's iron, sorry. I also have 35 copper ore on my person. Yeah, I could have spent some time chopping trees and smelting it on site, but I've actually got a decent amount of charcoal back at base, so I thought I'll just bring the whole lot back. And living up to form, here we go. Here's our first serpent. Now, it's worth noting that this particular boat, even with reasonably favourable winds, is going to struggle to outrun a serpent. There's a lot of luck comes into play, and as you can see, luck not that great for me this time. I did, however, remember to get a whole stack of flame arrows. They aren't the best thing to use on serpents, but they do enough useful damage from time to time that they're certainly not useless. The boat does take what seems like a lot of damage, but it actually didn't. It's probably only lost about 10 or 20% of its health. What I am, however, trying to do is kill the serpent, because a serpent gets 2 drops, and if you want both drops, don't kill them the way I'm killing this one. You want to drag them up on shore, because the serpent's scales that they drop are heavier than water, so they sink to the bottom. So they're basically gone at this point. But the serpent meat, it actually floats on the surface, and it is one of the best foods in slot for, I think, even in going into the plains. So there's not usually a lot of serpents around, so if you're in a position and you've got enough arrows and your boat isn't about to fall to pieces, it's not a bad idea to kill them as you see them. If you're keen to get one of the best, I'll say, mid-game shields, the serpent scale shield, you will need to kill the serpents in shallow water so that you can pick up their scales. Now, an unfortunate bit of mathematical failure on my account, I forgot to allow for the fact that I was basically full already. So I've elected to throw 2 of the troll things overboard because A, they're heavy, and B, trolls are easy enough to come by and kill at this stage, so to go back and kill another troll just to replace what I threw away is not hard at all. And there you can see it's probably 10 or 15% damage now I'm looking at it. So the boat's in pretty good order. Certainly not damaged enough that I feel a need to go ashore and build a workbench and repair it, which is not a bad thing to do sometimes in these situations, but at this stage I'm pretty confident. We are, I say, roughly halfway home at this stage. So we get underway more, and as you can see, we start to get in some rough seas again, and boom, here's another serpent. So, you know, Valheim and Murphy go hand in hand. This serpent encounter was a bit less desirable because I did not have favourable winds. I basically had to do almost a 180 to actually pick up the wind and get some speed. This time, however, because it's only Black Forest that I'm next to, I'm trying to drag the serpent to shore where it's shallower, and I might actually be in with a chance of picking up the scales. Let's see how that works out for us. Yeah, not going to be so lucky on that one. Once the serpents turn around and sod off, it's pretty hard to convince them to come back. Not the least of which is trying to land an arrow when the thing is basically on the horizon is just nigh on impossible with this bow. So I've admitted defeat. Well, maybe not. I'm thinking I'll hug the edge of the shore here for a little bit, just to see if I can, you know, coax him back over to the beach. Unfortunately, that ain't going to happen. Yep, so I just marked his approximate location on the map to come back to when I've got my harpoon on me, and his days will be numbered when I do that. Given I've got so much ore on me and I want to get focused on some upgrades, I decided to just sail back to base and get that underway. Now there's going to be a few more jump cuts here. It takes ages to smelt. I probably should have given myself a bit more room so I could have another smelter and another charcoal maker there, but it's alright. I tend to distract myself doing other stuff while it's going on, and I always end up cutting it out anyway, so it's not really a big problem only having the one. Now, it's worth noting that I can't actually do much with the serpent meat at this stage, because we need the chains from the wraiths. That unlocks a larger grill that we can put over the big fire, and that's what we use to cook the serpent meat and later the lox meat. And that in turn goes into the serpent stew, which is the really good food that I was talking about earlier. I have a feeling we may need some turnips in there somewhere as well, but I'm a little bit rusty on the recipe. Alright, that brings us to the end of a very special episode 1 of my second season of Valheim. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you want to see more, make sure you are subscribed and you've hit the notification bell. I'm very much looking forward to getting some more releases out there very soon. In the meantime, my name is Rudimentary Rob. Thank you for watching, and have yourself a wonderful day.